Welcome, everyone. Khosh Amadin. Welcome to tonight's program sponsored by the Center for Iranian Diaspora Studies and Diaspora Arts Connection. Tonight, we celebrate Shab Yalda, a very old tradition that marks the shift from one season to the next. Tonight, we're honoring the longest night of the year, the soon impending arrival of winter, and at the other side, the beginning of longer days again. So we're happy to share this very special Shab Yalda with you. And tonight you're in for a treat to have beauty and light coming into your homes. We want to invite you to make yourself comfortable, pour yourself a cup of tea, a glass of wine, whatever you need before we begin. I'd like to briefly introduce a dear old friend and a dear new friend. Zara Houshmand is an Iranian American writer whose work bridges cultural divides and includes poetry, theater, new media arts, memoir, and literary translation. Her poetry is widely published in journals and various anthologies. She's edited various books and has produced collaborative writing for A Mirror Garden with Monir Shahroudi Farmanfarmaian and Running Toward Mystery with the Venerable Tenzin Priyadarshi. Zara's translation of Rumi Poetry, which you will be hearing tonight, Moon and Sun, just came out in March of 2020, and you can find it on her website, which will be listed in the chat. And also with us tonight is the lovely Mahsa Vahdat, some of whom you have already heard her sing. She's an internationally acclaimed performer of Persian vocal music and strong advocate of freedom of expression in music. She's a dedicated singer and musician in her musical path and her artistic cause. Her career has given her deeper knowledge about Iranian poetry and music for larger audiences in Europe, America, Asia, Oceania, and Africa. And we're so delighted to call you, Mahsa, part of our local Iranian community and part of our beautiful diaspora. So thank you both for being here. The way we're going to celebrate Shab Yalda tonight is to hand over the mic to these two lovely women. They're going to be sharing poetry and music and talking a little bit about this special night, Shab Yalda. So I hand it over to you, Zara.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Persis. Welcome, everyone. I wanted to just explain a little bit more about the background. Shab Yalda, the Night of Yalda, is very ancient. It's a Zoroastrian celebration that goes back to the time of before Islam. And a lot of people know about Nowruz, the springtime celebration of the beginning of the year at the spring equinox. This is part of that same system of celebration of each equinox and solstice. And Yalda would be the longest night of the year. And because it's the longest night, it's also the harbinger of the light returning, because the days will get longer and there'll be more light after this. So it's really when you first see the light at the end of the tunnel, and I think in this year particularly, it's a very necessary moment of hope. One of the things that happens in a celebration of Yalda is you need to stay up all night because you need to keep the lights burning and through this darkness. And the way that you keep yourself awake to stay up all night is to read poetry and sing songs. And so we won't be going on all night, but we will be reading poetry and singing songs. And I am so honored to be doing this together with Mahsa Vahdat, who is just one of my idols. And I will let her explain a little bit more. We'll be taking turns with poetry and song, some of it translation, but I'll let her say more about it, the choice.
Thank you, Zara John. I'm so honored and happy to be here. And it's wonderful that we can celebrate Yalda also in this challenging time. And the reason that we make party or we are together all these years in Yalda night is that because it's comforting to be together to pass the darkest night. And also this year, Yalda night is the darkest night of the century, the whole century according to Persian calendar. And light is always praised as an essential element for sustaining hope and life. And so the poetry that Zara and I chose is about this, about hope, about light, about celebrating the joy of life. And also it's so fantastic to wait for birth of the sun. And Zara, you talked so beautifully. The poetry that we chose is from the poetry that Zara translated of Rumi's Rubaiyat, and then I chose some poems that or some songs that can mirror this beautiful translation and also beautiful poem of Rumi. And so they are mirroring each other and they are related. And I chose some songs from different albums that I did these years. And I'm so looking forward and so happy to reflect this sensitivity, passion, wisdom that are echoing for centuries through poetry and through the fantastic poetries of Hafez, Rumi, and others.
مزن بر دل مزن بر دل ز نوک غمزه تیرم که پیش چشم بیمارت بمیرم چنان پر شد فضای سینه از دوست که فکر خویش گم شد از ضمیرم برای آفتاب صبح امید برای آفتاب صبح امید که در دست شب هجران اسیرم
When there's no sign of hope in the desert, so much hope still lives inside despair. Heart, don't kill that hope. Even willows bear sweet fruit in the garden of the soul.
ای یار من ای یار من ای یار بی زنهار من ای دلبرا دلدار من ای محرما غمخوار من ای در زمین ما را غمت ای نیمه شب ما را سحر ای در خطر، ما را سپر ای ابر شکربار من. خوش می روی در جان من، خوش می کنی درمان من. ای دین و ای ایمان من، ای بحر گوهر دار من. ای شب روان را مشعله، ای بیدلان را سلسله، ای قبله هر قافله، ای قافله سالار من. هم مونس زندان من، هم دولت خندان من. والله که صد چندان من بگذشته از بسیار من، بسیار من. ای یار من، دلدار من.
My heart will never seek another heart or smell another flower, knowing you. Your love has made hearts feel the desert waste. No other love than yours grows in that place. The scent of you will never leave my nose. The vision of your face won't leave my eyes. A lifetime long I've dreamt you night and day. That life has passed, but the dream remains. Inside my heart and out, all is him. My body, blood, and veins, my life is him. There's no room here for blasphemy or faith. There's nothing to compare. All is him. You've stripped me of all signs and name, a soul clapping without hands like joy itself. No place contains my soul. Where should I go? You've made me homeless, like spirit free to flow.
گفتم غم تو دارم، گفتم غم تو دارم، گفتا غمت سرآید. گفتم که ماه من شو، گفتم که ماه من شو. گفتا اگر برآید. گفتم که بر خیالت راه نظر ببندم، گفتم که بر خیالت راه نظر ببندم. گفتا که شب روست و از راه دیگر آید. گفتا که شب روست و از راه دیگر آید. گفتم که بوی زلفت گمراه عالمم کرد. گفتم که بوی زلفت گمراه عالمم کرد. اگر بدانی هم اوت رهبر آید. گفتم که نوشی لالت ما را به آرزو کشت. گفتم که نوشی لالت ما را به آرزو کشت. گفتا تو بندگی کن کو بنده پرور آید. گفتا تو بندگی کن کو بنده پرور آید. گفتم غم تو دارم، گفتم غم تو دارم. گفتا غمت سر آید. گفتم که ماه من شو، گفتم که ماه من شو. گفتا اگر برآید.
Your homeland was the heavens, but you thought you belonged here in this world of dust. In the dust you drew your portrait, but you left out just one thing, your first true place. My friend, in friendship I am bound to you. Wherever you set foot, I am the ground. Since when do the laws of love allow that I may see your world, but not see you? Remembering your lips, I kiss the ruby on my ring. One I cannot reach, I kiss the one I can. My hand can't touch your distant sky, and so I bow full low and kiss the ground. Remembering your scent, when I see a flower, I smell it and tears begin to pour. When I see a cypress in the meadow, I kiss its feet in memory of you.
از شبنم عشق خاک آدم گل شد. صد فتنه و شور در جهان حاصل شد. صد نشتر عشق بر رگ و روح زدند. یک قطره از آن چکید و نامش دل شد.
The dew of love turned man's dust to clay, from which grew unruly passion's horde. Their 100 spears pierced the veins of soul. What we call heart is one drop of its blood.
تو نجوایی، تو آوایی، سکوت ساده تنهایی. ستاره از عبور توست، شفق سنگ صبور توست. تو میابی خم ره را، تو میجویی گل مه را. تو میبینی گل غم را، تو میچینی. به خواب تیرگی نوری، به ساق روشنی شوری. تو اشکی در غم خنده برای قطره دریایی، برای قطره دریایی. تو نجوایی، تو آوایی، سکوت ساده تنهایی. ستاره از عبور توست، شفق سنگ صبور توست. به خواب تیرگی نوری، به ساق روشنی شوری. تو اشکی در غم خنده برای قطره دریایی. تو نجوایی، تو آوایی، تو نجوایی، تو آوایی.
To the seeker, wisdom and madness are one. In love's way, self and other are the same. Having drunk the wine of oneness with my love, I find the road to Mecca and Bodh Gaya are the same. The dew of love turned man's dust to clay, from which grew unruly passion's horde. Their 100 spears pierced the veins of soul. What we call heart is one drop of its blood. Sadness to me is the happiest time, when cities rise from the ruins of my mind. When I'm silent and still as the earth, my thunder's roar fills the universe.
چمنی که تا قیامت گل او به بار بادا، صنمی که بر جمالش دو جهان نثار بادا، دو جهان نثار بادا. به پگاه میر خوبان، به شکار می خرامد، که به تیر غمزه دل ما شکار بادا، دل ما شکار بادا. به دو چشمم از دو چشمت چه پیام هاست هر دم، که دو چشمم از پیامش خوش و پر خمار بادا. تن ما به ما ماند که ز عشق می گدازد، دل ما چو چنگ زهره که گسسته تار بادا، که گسسته تار بادا. به گداز ماه منگر، به گسستگی زهره، تو حلاوت غمش بینه، که یکش هزار بادا، که یکش هزار بادا.
The nightingale comes to the garden, no more the crow. Light of my eyes, to the garden with you I'll go. Like lilies, like roses, will open and blossom. A stream running from garden to garden will flow. There's joy in my heart. I've joined my beloved tonight. finally free from the pain of our parting tonight. As we spin and dance, I pray in my heart, O Lord, may the keys to morning be lost forever tonight. That garden whose springtime made me blossom bloomed itself, displaying all I'd said. When he pressed luck's blessed cup on me, my head reeled and I laid down to rest.
دارم امیدی دارم امیدی در آسمانت دیدم ابر سپیدی دارم امیدی دارم امیدی در آسمانت دیدم ابر سپیدی ای ابر دلکش ای اسب سرکش دستی به یالت می نشیند تک سواری بیقراری کاوه ای در کار یاری عاشقی چشم انتظاری صحرا ندیدی تک سواری آرزو را در آسمان و بر زمین مانند او را این قاصد پرقصه بی گفتگو را ابر سپید سرکش امید ما را ابر سپید سرکش امید ما را دارم امیدی دارم امیدی دارم امیدی ای وطن دارم امیدی I have a hope.
Sadness and worry fade and do not last, where wine and song and good kebab are found. Drink the pleasure, friends, that never ends. Kiss the water's lips, like flowers, like grass. Get up, let's fill the night with moonlight. Wake the flowers, make them burn the midnight oil. For 3 months we steered our ship through the ice. Brothers, now it's time for the open sea. Like friends united, it's a season blessed. Heart's light is sparked to life by body's death. At the sound of lightning laughing, clouds cry. The garden laughs as tears fall from the sky.
دارم امیدی
And now we are going to do a fall, which is one of the customs of Yalda, to randomly choose a poem of Hafez, and that will tell your fortune for the season to come. And so now we're going to choose a poem and see. You need to make a wish. Everybody who's watching, make a wish, and we'll see how the poem answers your wish. Mahsa will choose the poem, and she will sing it, and then we'll try to do a translation.
Very strong poem came. منم که شهره شهرم به عشق ورزیدن، منم که دیده نیالودم به بد دیدن. وفا کنیم و ملامت کشیم و خوش باشیم که در طریقت ما کافری است رنجیدن. انان به میکده خواهیم تافت زین مجلس که وعظ بیعملان واجب است نشنیدن. مبوس جز لب معشوق و جام می حافظ که دست زهد فروشان خطاست بوسیدن.
منم که شهره شهرم به عشق ورزیدم، منم که دیده نیالودم به بد دیدم. وفا کنیم و ملامت کشیم و خوش باشیم که در طریقت ما کافریست رنجیدن. مبوس جز لب معشوق و جام می حافظ که دست زهد فروشان خطاست بوسیدن، که دست زهد فروشان خطاست بوسیدن. ای جان ای دل ای دل ای جان ای دل جان ای.
I think this fall is very, very optimistic. I will try to translate. Hafez is difficult. I'm the one who's known throughout the town for love play. I'm the one whose vision isn't stained by seeing evil. We are loyal, we take the blame, we're happy. On our path, it's heresy to complain. I asked the tavern master, which way lies salvation? He called for wine and answered, in not finding fault. And this next is very difficult. I will, let me try. What does the heart want from this world's garden, this show? Just to gather the flowers of your face into the opening of the soul. This is almost impossible to translate, but it gives you a hint of how complex Hafez can be. There's an expression for the pupils of the eye, which translates literally as the man of the eye. And Hafez has done something here where he talks about what do you want to see? What do you want to choose of all this beautiful creation? I want the hand of the man of the eye, like the pupils of my eyes, stick out their hand and pick the flower of your face. And how do you translate that? Because I think the way I interpret it is that he's saying that the pupil of the eye is the opening into the soul. So and that's what you're gathering, that beauty of the face of the divine from the world of creation. So there you go. What does the heart want from this world's garden, this show? Just to gather the flowers of your face into the opening of the soul. then worshipping the wine, I cast my own image on the surface to dissolve the self-image that I worship. And again, there's a beautiful image where he's bowing his head over the wine and his reflection cast on the surface, the water, the liquid of the wine, dissolves or breaks the image of himself that he holds in too high esteem. He breaks up his ego by drinking the wine. So worshipping the wine, I cast my own image on the surface to dissolve the self-image that I worship. I trust that the tips of your tresses will bless me. If not, if nothing draws you to me, then why should I try? Turn the bridle toward the tavern, away from this congregation. We won't hear sermons without the deeds to back them. Don't kiss the lips of anyone but Sari, the wine server, and the wine, Hafez. It's wrong to kiss the hand of any salesman of piety. And so that's our forecast for 2021, I think.
Wow, that was so beautiful. Thank you. خیلی قشنگ بود. I'm just struck by how both appropriate that poem was for this moment that we're living in, when we have salesmen and a pandemic, and we are in so need of hope. And I especially love that song that you sang, Mahsa, Daram Omid. Daram Omid. I want to sort of turn a little bit to the conversation of what Shalba Yalda means to you, but more importantly, what these poems mean to you. Both of you have undertaken very ambitious ways of bringing poetry from the distant past to life in this present moment. And you, Zara, especially bringing poetry from one language and one context, both culturally and religiously, into another context. And that's a formidable task to be able to do it so beautifully and carry the message. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the project of your translation, Sun and Moon. And by the way, we have a link where you can purchase this lovely book. It's a bilingual edition, and maybe Zara can talk a little bit about what it means to have a bilingual edition of a Persian poet. And then I'll turn to you, Mahsa, and ask a little bit about the same idea. What does it mean to bring the musicality of the poem to audiences that may not understand the words, but who understand the feeling and the sensitivity of these poets from far back in time?
I guess the easiest way to explain would be to tell a little bit about the story of how the translation project started, which was 20 years ago when I was reading the Coleman Barks translations of Rumi into English, and I thought, this is all very well, very nice, but it doesn't sound like Persian poetry. There's something missing. And I decided that I needed to study Rumi and learn. But as you know, Rumi is vast. There's volumes upon volumes and many, many thousands of bait. And just as a way of finding a place to start, this was back in 2000. And the online magazine Iranian.com was publishing a poem a day. And the editor had chosen Rumi's Rubaiyat as his theme for a few months. And every day he published one poem. So I thought, okay, that's my assignment. I will learn Rumi by translating 4 lines a day, because I think translation is a very good way of close reading, of studying. And so I started doing that, and I talked to the editor, and he started publishing the translations. So every day there would be a poem and a translation. And this was in the early days of social media, and all of a sudden people were responding. There were no comments in those days. It was letters to the editor. And I realized that there is a bilingual community that appreciates Rumi in the original and has the experience of English to be able to critique translation. And that's a very unusual thing. It's happened in, a few times in history, like the Mughal courts in India after the 16th century, or Latin poetry in the Middle Ages in Europe. So it was this very unusual circumstance where there was a very responsive community. And I ended up doing that every day for a year and a half. So there were 450 some poems. And I was getting feedback from the community and critique and correcting mistakes. And over 20 years, I improved the translations. And I very much wanted to publish them in a bilingual book with both the English and the Farsi, because I wanted to honor the community that they had come from. And I wanted to make it available for students. And because I constantly get questions from people saying, can you find me the original of this Coleman Barks translation? And it's like, no, I can't. So out of that sense of honor for a bilingual community, honor for the diaspora, I insisted on publishing it in 2 languages. And that's a little bit hard to do in terms of getting American publishers to agree. But over the years, it became possible, and I had it was beautifully designed by one of the founders of the San Francisco Center for the Book. So it's somebody who really knows book arts. And I don't know if you can see, no, you can't really see with the light and the, well,
Hold it closer.
yeah.
There you go.
You can see it's the 2 languages. It's beautifully laid out. The equal weight to both cultures, and I'm very pleased with it. Oh.
Before we turn to you, Mahsa, I just also want to identify that Mahsa and Zara's beautiful artwork is available, and Mahsa produced this lovely CD appropriately titled Enlighten the Night, here in Berkeley. So it has its own diasporic roots here in the Bay Area. Mahsa, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you came to work with singing Hafiz's poetry, and also what it means to you to bring this poetry alive to both Iranian-speaking audiences, but also to non-Iranians.
Yes, for me, to be involved with this poetry is like, they are for me like endless ocean of treasure. I always find something new. In a way, every day I am involved with them in my life, and I think I will continue till the end of my life. And there are still a lot of things that I can discover, and in different phase of my life, their face changes. It's fantastic how dynamic and alive they are. And for me, is always so fantastic to see how these poetry are so old, and but still they resonate so strong in our modern time. Because of their very, very universal and very timeless and placeless attitude and approach, and also the value that they propose is so fantastic. So for me, is really, really a pleasure and privilege to work with this fantastic treasury. And as a musician, I always, as I had both Iranian and also non-Iranian audience, I always I searched for an expression that how I can also transmit this sensitivity, passion, or longing, hope, or joy, or sorrow to also non-Iranian audience. So I'm searching, and it's a fantastic path for me. And I feel that the poems, both contemporary and also the old and classical poets, they are a really, really reliable source for humanity. And I'm so happy that we have all these poets because they embrace also people from different background, from different religion, faith. When you go to the tomb of Hafiz, you see people from every place, every religion, every faith, Muslim, non-Muslim, Christian, secular, all the people they come and it's a really true pilgrimage of a true pilgrimage for Iranian, I think. And also, it's not just their of course, they are, the poet like Hafiz is omnipresent in our life. And, it's fantastic to see the masterful and rich and profound approach that they have. And I think it's very, very important to also for the new generation to be in contact with this treasure, not from a very romanticized point of view, but also a very deep and profound understanding. So it's a really, really pleasure for me to work with this poem.
Thank you. Zara, can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges? You showed us what some of the challenges of translating Hafiz and certainly Rumi are in your little demonstration of the Faleh Hafiz. What do you think are some of the hardest things to convey into English from these poets that you have worked with?
I think two things come to mind very strongly. And one is in Farsi, your pronouns are ungendered. U can mean he, she, it, God. And in English, you're forced to choose. And so there's an open-ended interpretation that exists in the Farsi, and it becomes narrower in the English. And there's always this cloud over it that people turn to Rumi, for example, for romantic poetry. But I think it's fair to say that the poetry is very much about spiritual love, and using it romantically is a very small way of reading it. That problem with the translation of the pronouns sort of points to that, when you're talking about divine love as opposed to carnal love or romantic love. So that's one issue. Another that is sort of woven throughout is the problem of musicality. And the Rumi, the Hafiz, the Rumi especially, is incredibly musical. There's a tremendous amount of rhyme, internal rhyme, complex rhythms. There's this whole architecture of sound that happens even in just a short poem of 4 lines. And in English, rhyme has become very unfashionable. I mean, you can use it, but the kind of very strongly musical poetry that's typical of the Farsi classical poetry is something that has not been popular in English for a very, very long time. And so a lot of the modern translations just completely erase it, and they use very mundane language, and they don't even make an attempt to be musical. I wanted to capture somehow the sense of musicality without making it sound like old-fashioned Victorian poetry. And so I've used musical effects very subtly. There's slant rhyme, there's a lot going on, but it's not heavy-handed da-da-da-da-da, rhyme. And that was the challenge, to do something. And I think people have appreciated that, this is something a little bit unusual for modern American poetry, but it is musical, but it's not what we, that sort of stereotype of musical poetry that we have. So that was another big challenge, because the sound of the Persian is just so beautiful, and it lends itself to singing. There's just a natural musicality in it.
On that note of language and the challenges of language, Mahsa Jun, have you ever tried to sing I know you've collaborated with artists from all over the world, and they've sung for example, in Norwegian and you sung in Persian. Have you ever tried to sing in a language other than Persian, either these poems or anything else? And what makes that challenging for you if you have done it?
I have done, but I haven't performed. I didn't have performed, but I have done. I think because it's so very nice that if you also bring some other the articulation and the expression that they are in other languages, you can sometimes bring. But I didn't perform, not very much. But I collaborated with non-Iranian musician, and and the interaction that we had, it went so. Of course, we built for years. It has been for very many years that we are working together, and now the interaction goes very organic and naturally because we know each other, and they know about us, and we know about them, and this is something that makes the music interaction that goes very organically, and it's very. I also wanted to add something for previous question, that I am very intentional for choosing the poetry that if it should relate to some part of my life. It can be political, it can be social, it can be spiritual or emotional life. So when I cannot, so any poetry that I choose very much connected to my life, and for all these years that I've worked with non-Iranian musicians, when they discover this beautiful, fantastic poetry and the concept, of course, maybe they cannot understand the whole concept, but because these poems, they are they have very different dimensions, and even some small part of it, some small rays of the poems, when it can illuminate them. And I'm so happy that they became so familiar with this treasure. And also it makes the interaction, musical interaction, better and easier. It's always challenge, when two cultures they meet each other. But now I think with the word that we have, I think this dialogue based projects are very necessary and important, because it's the way that we can build connection based on respect and dignity, not just fear and separation. And so I think they are very important.
Thank you. We have a Q&A chat box, so if you have questions, I see a few, but feel free to type your questions in. Zara, one of the audience members asked what the response has been to your translation of Rumi from Iranians, and I would like to extend a similar kind of question to Mahsa. How has the reception of your music and your use of Persian poetry been received by non-Iranian audiences, specifically like in the United States? Because I know you've performed at some venues where non-Iranians have had the pleasure of hearing you. So Zara, why don't you start and talk a little bit about the response?
I think the response has been very enthusiastic, very supportive. Just simply getting the book published was a community effort. We did it first through Kickstarter. But I want to point out some of the strongest reaction has come from the Indian and Pakistani literati diaspora, because Persian literature is also very much appreciated beyond Iran. And it's very much educated Indians and Pakistanis really appreciate Persian poetry, as do Uzbeks and Tajiks, and the realm of Persian poetry goes far beyond Iran. And it's been interesting to me that I've had some of the strongest support from non-Iranians who do understand Persian. So it's been very interesting. It's just this widening circle of appreciation and learning what Rumi means to people all across the world.
For me also, I got the fantastic response from the people, and the people who come to my concerts or follow my artistic path. They know about this. They know for what if they know that it's not a kind of they to learn, and also I try to explain in all of my concerts about this hidden treasure, because it's like a hidden treasure, because many people, they don't know these things, and because of very many political matters, some part of Iran is very invisible for many people in the world, and Iran has a lot of story, especially from its poets, and that they are really reliable source. So I get a fantastic response, and they learn, I learn, and as I told that I always search how I can express all this longing, all this passion through my music for the people who they don't understand. Sometimes they imagine, and the imagination is also fantastic, their imagination. And sometimes I discover new things when they talk about, for example, a poem that I didn't discover before. So this interaction for me with audience is always fantastic. Iranian and also non-Iranian audience.
I wanted to also take this moment to again invite you to purchase this beautiful album called Enlighten the Night, and Zara's book, Moon and Sun. Our technical friends are putting the links in the chat. We like to support artists, especially in this time of COVID, when they're losing their opportunities for live audiences and ways to do book tours. So please make sure to support them. I also want to encourage you to join us on January 16th for Let Her Sing 2020. It's an annual event put on by Diaspora Arts Connection, and it's a wonderful celebration of the female voice. Mahsa is participating this year, as is her sister Marjan. So you get a twofer of the Vahdat sisters. So if you want to get a ticket for it, it's January 16th, 2021, that auspicious year ahead of us, and we'll put a link in there as well. I wonder if, Mahsa, you could talk a little bit about what it means for you to sing outside of Iran, and how does it both connect you to and also connect you to some of the longing for the things that you're not able to have in your everyday life?
For me, singing is really beyond everything. For me, singing is like my voice, my voice and my singing is like my home. Wherever I go, I can, and when I can sing, I feel home. It's a true home for me, and I learned all these years because of very many things, the restrictions in Iran and all these matters, that I should always protect my creativity wherever I go, in whatever situation I am. If I can really grow my songs, grow my creativity, and so when I do this, I can really handle all other problems. I paid a big price for the path that I chose, and I'm, of course, it's the thing that I chose myself. But the pleasure and the joy and the beauty of this path really compensate everything. You know, if I will be again, I will be born. Uh, I will be again. I like to be a singer, because you know, when I am singing, I am so transparent. I am true. I am myself, and I can reveal my secrets. I can be the person that sometimes I cannot be in the society. So this is the really safe zone for me, that I can reflect my questions, my doubts, my sensitivity, my dreams, my desire, my sorrow, everything. So singing for me is everything. And till I have life, I like to sing. I like to learn, and I like to teach.
Beautiful. Zara, there's a couple questions here about the format of your book.
Yes.
Somebody asked whether it's broken into chapters, and if so, how is it organized?
Mhm.
And then there's a kind of a question for the both of you when you're done.
Yes, the book is broken into chapters. It follows a kind of very loose narrative about the relationship between Rumi and Shams. Shams was his mentor, his teacher, and his partner in a spiritual conversation. So it follows, like I said, the narrative of their relationship, but it also sort of spins off into different themes. Some of the chapters, Love's Lightning, Secret Speech and Silence. Rumi talks a lot about silence, and Khamush is his signature. The Heart's Messenger, Show Your Face, Wrestling with the Angel, Die for Love, Drunk on the Essence. So there's some on the theme of what the wine and drunkenness means. Reunion in the garden, the theme of what the garden means. We had a taste of that with the Hafez tonight. So yes, there's this sort of broad narrative that structures the book, and a focus on different themes.
I want to offer the praise from the audience, because many people are absolutely enjoying this evening with the two of you. And they want to let you know how much they're enjoying it, how beautiful your voice is, how beautiful your singing is, and Zara, how wonderful your translations and how accessible they are. I'm so struck by how you've done things that many people have tried to translate Rumi, and they are a bit clunky, or they don't have access to the language. So they're working from second and third generation translations from the original. So it's so fresh, you know, it's fresh to hear your work. So there's a lot of praise from the audience. So I want to make sure you both know how much your participation and beautiful contributions mean to the audience tonight.
Thank you.
Someone else asked a question about how you're staying creative in the time of COVID. Both of you probably have plenty of room for solitude in order to make things, but also you probably enjoy the idea of the audience and you, Mahsa, the stage. How are you staying creative in this moment? And what is feeding you into 2021, when we're going to get that light at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, it was a challenging year, but I learned a lot of things. And you know, of course, I miss a lot to see, to interact with the audience. And now, for example, I really love to see their face. And you know, the situation is, everything has been changed, you know, in our life, and we adopted, you know, and it shows that how resilient we are. And for example, in this for this event, I learned a lot of things, and I also would like to thank to Mr. Yadegari from San Diego University, that he really helped me kindly for making this, for the performance, for the reverb, everything. For example, we learn a lot. The life became more challenging. But what I did for it in this time, of course, I am used to, my life as a woman singer in Iran always was uncertain. So I never stopped to create, or I never stopped to sing. So I know how to handle in a way. And but I really what I focused in this year was something that I did a lot of workshops, and singing workshops, and it was fantastic. Even it had some um, um, technical matters, issues, but this was something very important for me, that I focused more on this. And of course, for example, this album, this is the last album, the Enlighten the Night, came this year, but of course we recorded some part of it in 2018. I really did a lot of because the creativity never stops. I never wait for example, something. I always try to create and be active as much as I can. And this time also I had some time, because I stayed in one place. Mostly I was in Berkeley, and what I saw the most was a very beautiful place here that I go every day for walking. And in my walk, I could see the things more, more deeply now. And everything sometimes comes to my life in my ordinary life. It's like a gift for my music. And so in a way I went more profound sometimes in my life. And because all years I had a lot of journeys, and but this time I really stayed in one place. And but I, of course, it was very challenging, especially when you don't see the audience, and you don't interact. We need each other to. That was something, but this is the life that it's very important to know how to protect your creativity, your. I did some works in the beginning that I didn't do for some times. For example, I did some needle work that really I didn't have time for that, and all of them was something very special for me. So maybe I am I have always a hopeful character, a personality I inherited from my father. But I could handle and I could try to be in shape.
Zara?
I think in many ways it's been similar for me. I mean, I used to work in theater a lot, and I don't have that connection now so much. So I don't have that that sense of loss of the direct work with the audience. I'm used to solitude as a writer. I spend most of my days now, much as I did before. Things have not changed that much for me. And I live up in the mountains, and I go for long walks in the woods. So the solitude is not anything unusual for me. And there is a sense, like Mahsa said, of going deeper. I had a big project that was lined up that would have taken a nonfiction book that I was supposed to work on, that would have taken 4 months of travel across Africa, and that completely fell apart. So I find myself at home, and all of the professional commitments out in the world have vanished. So I've run out of excuses to not do the creative work. And that means I've just been writing fiction and going deep inside my own head and quite enjoying myself. And at the same time, there are unusual opportunities for connection. Meeting Mahsa, for example, and working on this Zoom meeting together has been an absolute delight. I mean, this is one of the great treasures of my life this year has been this connection. And I'm so grateful. And so, things continue in new ways.
Yeah. Well, it is a strange irony that collaborations and even having audiences that we've never had before are possible in this moment. So while we miss the molecules of physical togetherness, we have another kind of togetherness that wasn't possible. So we're so grateful that we could smash your molecules together in the internet. I'm mindful of that there are no more questions. So I thought maybe we could close out. I think you had another song, Mahsa, didn't you? Let me just say by way of introduction, 2 weeks ago, we did an event with the Poetry Center at San Francisco State called the Legacy of Furufa with 3 writers, Shole Wolpe, who's a poet, translator, Jasmine Darznik, who's a novelist and memoirist, and then Shabnam Piryai, who's a filmmaker, poet. And they shared with us the work that they're doing that's both inspired by her life and her writing. And you talked a little bit about the high price you have paid to be a singer, musician, Mahsa. When we had this event, it was really wonderful because the 3 writers talked about her boldness and her poetry and what it meant to them. And you mentioned when we were talking about this program that you thought there was a poem by Furukh that would be appropriate. So it's an opportunity to bring a more recent poet into this conversation.
نگاه کن که غم درون دیدم چگونه قطره قطره آب می شود چگونه سایه سیاه سرکشم اسیر دست آفتاب می شود نگاه کن تمام هستیم خراب می شود شراری مرا به کام می کشد مرا به اوج می برد مرا به دام می کشد نگاه کن تمام آسمان من پر از شهاب می شود تو آمدی ز دورها و دورها ز سرزمین عطرها و نورها به راه پر ستاره می کشونیم فراتر از ستاره می نشانیم کنون که آمدیم تا به اوجها مرا بشوی با شراب موجها مرا بپیچ در حریر بوست مرا بخواه در شبان دیر پا مرا دیگر رها مکن مرا دیگر رها مکن مرا از این ستاره ها جدا بکن نگاه کن تو میدمی و آفتاب میشود. The sun will rise.
I want to conclude by thanking you both for sharing your beautiful work, your voices, your translations with us tonight, and helping us to stave off the darkness for just a little while. And I also want to say that 2 years ago, we had a Yalda dinner and Zara was there, and our friend Hossein said something that was so poetic. He, after our friend Mokhtar read a poem, Hossein said, you know, I like that we don't demonize the darkness because we need the darkness to understand the light. So I want to also thank you for helping us to understand that without darkness, we can't fully come to an appreciation of the light. And I think that's one of the great pleasures of Persian culture, is that it's very attentive to the seasons and how they affect us and what they mean in the life of human beings. I also want to remember all the loss that this year has brought for people, both in Iran and in the United States. It's been a really tough year. And so I hope that we bring the hope that you so beautifully sung about, Mahsa, into this next year. And please support artists. We need to do all we can to keep their music and their poetry alive. And thank you again. And please be sure to check out Moon and Sun and Enlighten the Night. They're good ways to pass these dark days. Thank you again for being with us, audience members. Check out the Center for Iranian Diaspora Studies website. We have an exciting year of programming coming up, and we hope you'll join us in the future. We still are going to be online for the spring semester, so you can join us from far and wide places. And thank you to our friend Nazi Kavyani and Diaspora Arts Connection for supporting this program with us, and to our two wonderful technical support members, Shahryar Najaf Gholizadeh and Nick Nguyen. And have a good holiday and Happy New Year. Thank you all.
Thank you, Persis.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Zara. Thank you.